Adoption. The word itself conjures up a sense of goodness, nobility, and happily ever after. But it's a story that society paints, rather than those who are adopted, conjured up by adoption agencies and the media. In the majority of recruitment campaigns for adoptive parents, we are shown the adopted child and the adoptive parents. But we rarely hear from adoptive adults or birth parents. When you strip away the facade of happy smiles and forever families, adoption starts from a place of loss, separation, and trauma. Children are taken from their family of origin and placed with strangers while being told it's best for them. Birth parents are commended for doing the right thing, and adoptive parents are congratulated for taking a child that is not biologically theirs. Adoption is trauma, separation trauma, a less understood and spoken about issue that affects an adoptee, the primal wound. Trauma is deeply distressing, but when a child is permanently separated from its mother, devastation is a more appropriate word, severe and overwhelming shock or grief. This grief becomes a silent undercurrent of guilt, shame and rejection that weaves in and out of an adoptive child's life as time goes by. And as the child grows up into an adult, these issues cross and overlap in places. I can talk about the trauma of adoption and still love my adoptive parents. I can speak about the privileges that adoption has given me and still love my first family. I can talk about my natural mum and still love my adoptive mum. There isn't an either or. Both truths coexist. Each adoptee's experience is unique and adoption is complicated. It is also not a one-time thing. I am always adopted, always an adoptee. Adopting itself isn't a flawed idea. Adopters are not themselves to blame for the current system and most undoubtedly love their children. But the system as it stands is centred on white people and wealthy people, and it clearly exposes inequality. Birth parents are abandoned, then erased. Kingship carers are forgotten. Identity and history are lost, even in reunion. Adoption causes long-term effects in the life of an adoptee. Adoptees are told that they should be grateful for being adopted, otherwise our lives could have turned out significantly worse. But what about the primal wound, the wound that cuts deep at the point of separation from the mother? Child relinquishment is one result of a failed social care system, a failed society. The social care system discriminates against working class families and doesn't provide the necessary mental health support for adoptive people in adulthood. That's why Adoptee Futures is calling for adoption agencies and the government to transform the current adoption system from an adopter-focused narrative to an adoptee-focused approach. Understanding that adoption as it currently exists is like putting a plaster on a deep wound. It is a superficial fix that does nothing to erase the massive inequalities in the welfare and adoption system, resulting from structural racism, classism, ableism and colonialism that exists in and erodes all areas of society. It is not beautiful that adoptees are 4 times more likely to take their own lives than non-adoptees. It is not beautiful that some adoptees spend a lifetime trying to recover from a loss so deep. We at Adoptee Futures understand the disconnect that some adoptees experience, and that so often the dominant happily ever after narrative of adoption overrides our individual stories and experiences. Adoption is trauma, and adoptees' voices who don't fit the popular headline still need to be heard because their experiences and feelings are valid and vital. We want to see adoption agencies and recruitment campaigns give space to adoptees' voices and the adoptee advocates working in the field to raise awareness of adoption trauma. We want to see the government provide greater resources to families in crisis and a deeper investment in education on development trauma and its link to adoption for prospective adopters and those who have been adopted. We want to see further research in this area, hopefully leading to more support for adoptees, young and old, because support for adoptees shouldn't stop when a child reaches adulthood. Adoption is lifelong, and so are the issues that adoptees experience.